Just want to talk a little bit today about team building. There's been a lot of talk about team building and about the power of team building, the effectiveness of team building in meetings. And team building is something that more and more planners are getting interested in as more than just a space filler or an agenda item in their meetings. They're realizing that there's a value in strategically constructed team building events. We do a lot of them, so I thought maybe I'd give some tips. The best way to get the most out of team building when you add that to your group's meeting agenda. We help plan memorable meetings with the focus being on the outcome of the meeting. We're not focused so much on what happens during the meeting, although that's important. It's really, what do your attendees take home? What do they take back with them? And the meat of your agenda certainly isn't going to be your team building event, but it will have a big part in how your attendees feel once they leave. And we can make them feel lots of different ways through team building activities, depending on which ones you choose, with the goal of coming out of the meeting with something you can measure and feel and related to your team building. I've got several team building suggestions on how to construct an effective event that will leave your team feeling this need of connection and trust and bond that I think so many companies are looking for today. So one of the benefits of team building is strengthening of bonds, like I mentioned, and all teams can benefit from strengthening bonds. This could be a new team of entirely new team members that haven't ever met before. They could be remote teams. There's so many people of late have been working more in remote offices that never get to meet in person. So it could be a gathering of those folks. It could be territory managers or regional managers who often don't get to see one another in person. And sometimes it's not even about the team that changes. Sometimes the team's the same, but the leaders change or the company changes. And those elements are just as important in getting teams back together, reestablishing bonds, reestablishing connections, reestablishing trust. In any of those situations, a team building can really be the idea that changes the dynamic of your meeting. As an intervention strategy, it's a really good tool. Let's say you need to rebuild trust on a team, or you need to repair relationships on a team. Something's damaged them, some internal trauma or strife has caused some issues. A team building event can help bring those people back together. And we know you can't talk your way or meet your way to stronger bonds. You can't will it to happen. It really needs to be strategic in the way that you lay it out. Team building activities can help get you there without being in your face about doing it. Adding team building activities to your meeting agenda doesn't need to be a throwaway or an empty agenda item. Sometimes people think, oh, it's a fluffy thing that we don't really need to do. And that's not true. Really, when we plan a meeting, and we really want to design one that caters to the needs of your team. And there's lots of different needs, just depending on what your team is looking for. There's educational team buildings, like where I am today, out at our beehives. It's a great activity to do with your team if you want to talk about team building, collaboration, working together. There's no better example than a beehive colony. And we can bring the team right out to the beehives, open them up, let you see how Wing communicates with the worker bees and the drones, and talk all about that dynamic, because it's not so much different than a big workplace. And some of those elements are really fun to learn. So your team building could be educational focused. It could be strategically focused. Maybe you want to increase your team's attention to detail or their communication skills, or develop their leadership skills, their problem solving skills. We can develop a team building that caters to those needs as well. Your team building could be challenging. You could make it physical, hike or a canoe paddle. It could be calming, like yoga or Pilates. It could be more energetic like that. It could also be competitive. There are culinary team building challenges that are the rage right now. And of course, we get a lot of requests to do those. And they're always fun. But then you can do even more lighthearted and fun things, like a culinary challenge that I mentioned, a mixology, where you do some drink building competitions, or paint and sips, things like that are more lighthearted and fun. But I think any team building activity really needs to identify the results that you're looking for. You need to know what you're looking for out of that team building activity before you do it. Otherwise, it does become an agenda filler item. So whatever it is that's making you want to do a team building activity or making you want to bring your team together, we can identify one of these categories to really target for your team and get the most out of them by the time the team building event is done. So a well-chosen team building activity should consider several elements. There's lots of things that really goes into it. First, you need to know your audience. There are extroverts on our teams. There are introverts on our team. There are people that are highly social. There are people that are more reserved. There are people that are experimental and wanting to do everything. And there are people that are more cautious. Some teams are high performing when they come to the meeting, and some people are less performing and they're developing. And so there's a team building that can target each of those areas as well, each of those groups. Some team buildings that target all of those and bring out the best in everyone. And so you have to carefully decide what team buildings work for your team. I think second, you need to choose the timing. When in the day do you want to do it? When in your program do you want to do it? It's a multi-day program. For example, you could do a sunrise yoga first thing in the morning to ease your attendees into their day, or you can do a numbers challenge first thing in the morning to really jumpstart their brains and get their minds thinking. You could do an evening canoe paddle if you want to just do a fun kind of bonding experience over something that's a little more calming. You could do a midday strategy game that kind of breaks the day up a little bit and gives them a little bit of an energy boost. So timing is really important. We recently had a group that did an AM morning, first thing in the morning, culinary give back opportunity where they got together and they built lasagnas and apple crisps and French garlic breads to deliver to the local homeless shelter. They did that first thing in the morning when everyone got up. And I'll tell you, it's amazing to watch a team do that first thing in the morning and then go to work in their meeting, because the energy level, the feeling that they get from giving back and knowing that they contributed to others and that bonding that they did first thing in the morning was really, it was just eye-opening how impactful that was. So you really have to think about your timing. And then third, you really want to consider whether, what the results are, the planned results that you expect to get and the unplanned results that you might get. So do you want the attendees at the end to feel results more inwardly? Do we want them to be retrospective about what they went through, the quiet contemplation of what they did? Oftentimes these give back opportunities do that, where they feel like, I really did contribute to something meaningful beyond myself and beyond my company. If you want them to feel that, there's team buildings for that. If you want them to feel outwardly or personally rewarded, there's a team buildings that are for that, where you see each other you see them high-fiving each other and they feel really good about coming together as a team and solving a major problem for him. You want them to feel unified at the end, and almost always want them to feel unified. We want them to build their bonds, build trust, stronger collaboration, and know each other personally, more personally than they do over a Zoom call or even in the office. They'll need to know who they can turn to when they have an issue. Some people are stronger at one aspect of the company than others, and you'll need to know who to form a team with back in the office. If you want a specific challenge resolved or a team built together, you want to know who to call on. Those things only happen when you really get to meet in person. You can go through these team building activities and figure out what makes each other tick. And then you want to know, or you want to expect that the results will be collaborative. How does a team come together when they get back to the office? And you should be able to see that result after a team building event takes place. And of course, at the end of the day, sometimes it is about the people and about the results they get, but also there's the CSR, this corporate responsibility projects that people like to tout in their own companies, the things that they do to give back to communities, to do hands-on experiences that help others. And so that from a CSR perspective, there's no better thing to do when you're having a group of people come together than do a team building that reflects that. For those people that are considering designing their own team building activity, there are some tips that I could give. The first being, you need to have a purpose. What's the activity designed to do? What's it designed to show or to teach? And what insight will it give you into your team's performance or your team's unity? And then you need to think about the length of the activity. How much time do you have allotted in your agenda for it? But be sure you include time for introducing it, time for doing it, but most importantly, time for discussing it and debriefing it at the end. It doesn't make sense to do a team building activity unless you really debrief it at the end and figure out if your team really learned something from it, because they should. You want time to gather supplies and consider the safety of your event. Do you have enough space? Is there proper equipment? What's the physicality of the event? Can your attendees actually do the event safely? And then set the stage. How are you going to set it up for the team? Are you going to build a story around it? Are you going to make up you're a nuclear scientist and this is your challenge, right? Are you going to build a story around it to make it fun? So consider that. How are you going to set the stage or the backstory for it? And then the setup and intro, when you really define the rules and let the team know what the exceptions will be, how to perform the team building together, so that you can step back and watch what happens. And next, you want to write yourself a little list of what you expect to see, what you'll be watching for as the facilitator. How do they spend their time? Who rises as a natural leader? Who contributes? How committed are they to each other and to the project? And did they plan? Did they rehearse? Did they practice? Did they use their individual strengths? Did they call on each other to help? So all these dynamics that you'll watch through the team building really tell you a lot about your team and where they are in the spectrum of becoming a really cohesive team. And then lastly, like I mentioned, you really want to formulate some sort of a debrief activity and discussion. How did their strengths change? Did they use each other's strengths? What was the command structure like? Did someone rise to the top? Did others follow? Did they compete for the top spot? Did they give each other enough leeway to individually contribute, or did one person take over? And then, what did they get out of it? You want to ask them, how did they feel that the team building led to a greater understanding of how the team dynamic works? And what can they do? What can they bring back to their office or to their team once the event is over? Those are important things that you want to make sure that you're looking for at the onset, so you know how to debrief it at the end. You might even give examples of a successful outcome. In some team buildings we do, there are team building challenges and nobody gets the right answer. So we discussed with them what the right answers were, or how to construct a particular model that would have worked. And we debrief that a little bit and from real life experiences. And that's always fun for people to learn from. I guess if I leave you with anything, it's that we should never discount the value of strategically focused team building and reaching a team meeting goal. It's really important to build that in, and don't discount it. It's not just an agenda filler.